everyone, this is Kimberly and welcome back to Fables Stand. So today I'm trying something very interesting. I will be asking my tarot deck on how to create a tarot deck. I'll be asking my pandas, we have the Panda Tarot, for tips on how to create a meaningful, powerful, amazing, awesome deck. And we'll see what happens because I thought this would be a fun thing to try. And it would be somewhat meta, it would be kind of fun, it would be me also intuitively channeling what I know. And I also don't know what's gonna come up. Well, actually I kind of do already because I already pulled the cards. I thought it would be a fun approach considering that if I were to brainstorm and come up with ideas for this video, it would somewhat be like logical, practical, maybe has to do with more of the logistics, such as making sure your image files are in CMYK so you don't run into printing issues. I made a video about that, so make sure to check that video too. Since I'm in the process of creating multiple decks, and I'm always creating decks, and this is a topic I'm obviously very passionate about, I want to talk more about it on my channel. I think maybe that's something like, well, that it's not a maybe, it's actually something people ask me about all the time. So I'm just like, why don't I just start talking about it more? Because I think a part of me feels a little bit inhibited when it comes to talking about my creative process, because I feel like the part of me that is afraid of judgment is afraid that if I talk about my decks, if I talk about my creative process, I don't want to seem like salesy. I know this is kind of like a nightmare for a lot of the heart-centered entrepreneurs and business owners. It's like you don't want to talk about yourself too much to the point where people think you're just trying to sell stuff to them. And I don't want everything I do to feel manipulative or controlling. Maybe it's silly, maybe I'm overthinking this, but I just don't want to end up like some of the teachers and mentors and instructors that I have come across in my life that were kind of manipulative and a little usy. I don't ever want to become the villains of my life. So I always feel a little self-conscious about like sharing my creative journey or just talking about my decks in greater detail, or just talking about my decks in general. Like, I love talking about my decks. I'm doing a lot of it anyways, but it's just like, this is something that people can't pay me to shut up about. Like, you could give me $1 million and tell me that I cannot talk about it for the rest of my life. I will die. I will literally die. My spirit will wither. I will not take that $1 million, because talking about decoration and doing what I love is already $1 million. And some things cannot be quantified with money. Of course, $1 million would be nice, but not with that as an exchange, if you know what I mean. On a random note, maybe that is also like a good indicator, like if that thing is your dharma or not, if that is your sole purpose, if that is your bigger mission, it's something that people can't pay you to stop doing, if that makes sense. Okay, so without further ado, I already pulled 3 cards before I started this video, before I clicked record, and I asked Way of the Panda Tarot to shed light on the creative process. I drew 3 cards, and this is the first card, and I was a little shook. I was like, oh, it's the 5 of Pentacles, and I was honestly expecting something more cheery and something more uplifting, something more aligned with the spirit of abundance, because the act of creating is an act of abundance. It's an act of generating abundance, but I got the 5 of Pentacles. I think the first thing that came to my head when I see the 5 of Pentacles is that I feel like the pandas are saying, don't make a deck just to make money. And this is kind of like a little pet peeve of mine, because sometimes I see like cash grabs on Kickstarter and I'm just like really annoyed. Obviously, I love making money. I love making money through my art. It is my passion, my calling. Of course, it's like awesome to make money from your art. And of course, the point of publishing a deck, other than to put it out there and share it with the world, you want some money to print the thing and you want some profit to reward your hard labor, especially when you are publishing independently. So, you know, I'm not ashamed to say, like, obviously I want to make money too. There's no shame in making money. I'm not trying to shame anyone for creating a deck for money. You know, obviously you want to create something that's going to generate profit for you. So absolutely no shame in that. I'm not trying to say like you should just be a martyr and create a deck and just sacrifice yourself in the name of art. That is like an outdated paradigm and it's toxic. I'm not about that, so I'm not talking about that. I think what the pandas are saying, like, you don't want to let money affect your creative genius. You don't want to use that as the main navigational tool or post for making creative decisions with your deck. Because I think like a lot of times we get caught up with like, we need to make something that the market is going to accept, or we need to make something that is so exceptional and so good that has market value. And of course there's obviously that's obviously a valid consideration. Like, you know, you want to consider like you know, the audience that you're presenting your deck to, and you want to consider like the logistics of your deck. So all of that is valid. If you're foregoing your own creative expression and your own creative inklings, if you're bypassing what brings you joy just to create something that the people will like, then you're not being truthful to your creative process, and you're also creating from a place of lack, because you're really saying, I am not allowed to create something that I truly enjoy, that I truly value. I can only create something that people will like, otherwise they won't buy it. So you're already operating from a place of lack. That's not good. I think the message of the Five of Pentacles is really like to stay true to your creative vision. I think sometimes maybe the logistical side of things and needs to be adjusted according to the market, according to your audience. Maybe you need to message a little differently, maybe you need to present it a little differently, but I think you should never compromise your creative integrity. You should never give up on your vision. You should never feel like, oh, I'm not allowed to create a randomly themed deck because no one's gonna like it, or like I can't do this because this is gonna be such a small crowd. Let's say you create a extremely niche deck and it's not gonna sell, like for example like Modern Witch Tarot or Wild Unknown that has a really wide popular audience, and you're creating something niche and something that has a smaller audience, and you don't think that you're gonna make a lot of money, so you don't create it, or you change the theme of it and going against your creative currents just to kind of make it like more palatable for the public. I think that's a little sacrilegious, because I think every creative project that comes into our lives have a soul. You want to honor your true creative vision, even if it's something that has a smaller crowd. A smaller crowd on the internet, which is billions and billions of people, can generate a lot of profit for you. Like maybe it's gonna have a slower build up. It might require for you to do more marketing to find your crowd, but the crowd that you find is gonna be genuine and truly supportive of who you are and what you create. And at the same time, it really also depends on what you're looking for as a deck creator, and if you want to run it as a business, and how much money and effort and time that you want to put into it. It really depends on you and what you want and what you want to create. But I think a point needs to be made, like when we get too caught up with how people are going to perceive this deck and we make decisions based on like, are people going to buy this or not? I think that really affects our creative process and our creative integrity, because we want to create something that is a genuine expression of who we are and what we want to give to the world. Speaking of giving to the world, I think Five of Pentacles is also saying like creating a deck is an amazing way to externalize the part of you that has cultivated the wisdom that you needed to overcome your own lack. It's an amazing way to kind of leave a legacy. I always feel like creating a deck is sort of like, you know, utilizing all the tarot archetypes and just expressing myself through the portals of tarot and images of tarot. It's such an amazing opportunity for me to pack everything that I have learned, everything that is me, you know, in the context of this deck into physical form. When you're using Way of the Panda Tarot, when you're pulling cards from Way of the Panda Tarot, or just like any deck by any creator, you're really glimpsing into their soul. You're glimpsing into like how they view the world, their perceptions, and the wisdom that they have cultivated, the medicine that they have cultivated within themselves, and that everything that gets channeled into the archetypes of tarot. So I think creating a deck is a way to kind of like add more abundance to the lackness that is the world, because if you look at the Five of Pentacles, this panda is sort of comforting this other panda. So it's kind of like, what is your unique gift? What is your unique perspective? What is something that you've gone through, wisdom that you have cultivated, medicine that only you can share, that you get to put into this deck and share with the world? Like you get to put a lot of love into it, you get to put a lot of light codes into it, you get to put a lot of radiance and beauty and expression into it. What is that unique imprint that only you can channel into your deck and just make the world a better place? And I know this is like very grandiose and maybe a little cheesy, but I truly believe that everything we create has an impact and has a footprint and has a light print. This is something that only you can bring. Like as a decorator, this is only something that you can channel into your deck. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So what is like a lack that you can solve? What is an abundance that only you can add to the world? What is your unique contribution through this deck? Okay, so the second card is Justice, and the pandas are hard hitting today. I was really expecting something fluffy, but like the pandas are just like, no, we're gonna like give you the Five of Pentacles and we're gonna give you the Justice card. So I think this one stems more from my personal experience, but I'm sure a lot of you may relate to it, was that when I was creating Way of the Panda Tarot and I had my vision for this deck. You know, I wanted something very whimsical, very cute, very loving, very adorable. But I was kind of confronted with this stereotype around pandas, especially in Western culture, because pandas are associated with Taoism, Buddhism, Asian philosophies, and this idea of Zen. So I kind of was grappling with the stereotypes that people want to kind of project onto my deck. And I understand that because I had that stereotype too, but what I came to realize was that wasn't really my vision for the deck. That wasn't how I wanted to talk about the deck. I remember when I first marketed the deck, it was obviously very cute, very adorable, but because it was in watercolor and the art style is somewhat minimalist and there's lots of flowers, so it really reminded people of like minimalistic like Buddhist Zen paintings. And I was challenged by the popular consciousness surrounding pandas, and people kept wanting to call it like Zen Panda Tarot or Tao Panda Tarot, something that's really like Asian-y, if you know what I mean. But that wasn't the spirit of the deck. Like when pandas came to me, when I envisioned this deck, the pandas are just cute, affectionate, loving. If you look at video footages of pandas rolling around, a lot of the interpretations of what the panda archetype means as an animal, you know, like if you look at the animal wisdom that the panda gives, usually you will get keywords like introspection, meditation, and like pause or whatever, you know, very in alignment with like the Buddhist Zen or like the Asian philosophies of like cultivating space within your head. But if you really look at panda behavior, that's not really how they behave. Pandas are very playful, they're a little trickstery, they are out of it, they love food, they love eating, pooping, sleeping. They're just very connected to their bodies and they're just enjoying life. There's this misunderstanding when it comes to what pandas represent. So I was really kind of challenged by that, and I was the people pleaser in me wanted to make people happy. So I kind of catered to that. I kind of catered to the audience because I felt like if I didn't, then they wouldn't like my deck. They wouldn't buy my deck. I think Justice has a very potent message here, is that you need to stay true to your vision, and sometimes you might get challenged by stereotypes and how people want to view your deck. Like people are always going to have ideas about what your deck is going to be, especially when you're just starting and you're sharing ideas with people, you're using people as a springboard. They're always going to have projections on what they want your deck to be. But it's important to stay true to your vision, and it's important to perhaps protect that space for a little while. This is why a lot of writers and creatives don't like to share the idea in the very beginning, because they don't want other voices to be in that gestating space. I think that's a good idea. I think like it's wise to only share it with perhaps people you trust, like people who are excited about your idea, but they're not gonna be like, here's some salt, here's some pepper, like this is the dish I want to see. You don't want too many hands in the kitchen, right? That's what I'm saying. Like you want supportive people to kind of be like, oh my god, like how awesome it is that you have an exciting idea. I'm so excited for you. But you don't want to run it by people who are gonna be like, so like this deck is gonna be this, right? Like you should do this. Oh, you should do that. You should do this. And I think they're also expressing excitement. I think they're also excited for you. But I think it depends on what kind of creator you are and what kind of boundaries you have, or how susceptible that you are to kind of comments like this. If you're feeling a little insecure about your idea, if you're just a little unsure because you're just starting out, I think it's important to have some creative boundaries. That's the word, creative boundaries. You need to have creative boundaries, especially when it comes to especially when you're creating something that it's a little different from the public perception. If you want to put a new spin on things, if you want to put your own thoughts and ideas around a topic that already has a pre-established audience, or just a set of stereotypes surrounding it, such as pandas, I think you just need to stay true to your vision, have great creative boundaries, and just keep those voices out, and just be like, okay, I acknowledge that this is your perception, but I'm gonna do my own thing. And on that note, I think it's also good to understand what people are thinking, right? So when you explain this deck to them, people might be like, how come there's no Zen? Like, what's the big deal? You can use this as a segue to explain your deck to them, right? You can be like, okay, I know usually pandas are associated with this and that, but this deck has a new spin, has a new take on pandas, blah, blah, blah. So this is actually going to help with your marketing. If you obviously want to pay attention to how people are talking about your deck, you want to it's a balance. But I think for the most part, what I'm saying is that you just need to have great creative boundaries. And I think this is a great card highlighting that. So thank you, pandas, for your wisdom. I think the pandas are also speaking from experience. And also, if you think I'm crazy talking about my deck as if they're actual pandas, that's how I feel. That's honestly how I feel, and if you're gonna judge me for that, whatever. This is my light. I can live it however I want. But I truly believe my decks are alive. Not alive, you know what I mean? But I just treated with a lot of love and respect and a lot of spirit. That's what I mean. Okay, so the last card is a bonus card that only this deck has that I've created for this deck. It's called the Caffinated Panda. And this one is interesting. I feel like researching is so important for your deck. I've seen deck creators run into problems where they get stuck on a logistic, or they get stuck on like a creative process or launching their campaign because they didn't do their research. And I think researching beforehand is going to be so helpful. And obviously there's research to be done for the production and a lot of logistic stuff. I think a lot of deck creators get caught up on that type of research, and I get it. But I think you also need to do some like market research and creative research. For example, good things to look at is like when you envision your deck, like what kind of specs do you want it to have? What kind of box do you want it to be in? What kind of paper? What kind of finish? And this could get overwhelming, especially if you're just stepping into the printing space. But there's lots of resources out there. I believe Lisa from Panda Tarot did this massive, mega, extremely well-researched videos on different types of like specs for deck printing, so I recommend you checking out that video. I think she even knows more than me, because I know she talked to a lot of creators for this, so I recommend checking out that video. Researching is so important. Like, you want to do market research. Actually, before market research, you might want to do some creative research. You want to look at other indie decks, maybe that have a, that have like a similar aesthetic than you. Like, you don't want to strive to be like them, but you kind of want to see how things are done, right? You also want to look at like how you want to distinguish your deck from those decks, and what are some of the takeaways that you can get from looking at those decks. You can be like, oh, actually, I really love the look of this like holographic silver edge. I might try that for my deck. Oh, I really love how this text is placed on the deck cover. So you want to get some creative ideas and just like some context for what you're creating, because if you're creating a deck if you're going to independently publish, which I assume is why are you watching this video, because I'm an indie deck publisher. An indie deck creator that publishes her own deck. I do have dreams of having my own creative studio and publishing house, so in the future, like, come back in a decade and see like how awesome this channel is gonna be. Maybe not a decade. Anyway, yeah, so you want to do creative research just to get some creative inspiration from the decks that have already been created, and also get some ideas about how you can distinguish your deck from other decks that may have a similar tone to yours or similar themes to yours. And never be afraid of creating something that's already been done per se. It's like, before I created Way Up the Panda Tarot, there was already a panda deck out there, but can you get enough of pandas? Of course you can. And there's also like hundreds of cat decks out there, but people still buy cat decks because cat decks are just know that the tarot community is slutty for cat decks. So yeah, you should totally do some creative research. And the second thing you should research is definitely market research. You want to, after you have some idea about what your deck is going to look like and what kind of specs it has, how many cards, guidebook or not, etc. You want to do some market research and look at how things are priced, and look at like where people are selling those decks, and look at like similar Kickstarter campaigns, and just see how the campaigns are written, and look at successful Kickstarter campaigns, see what what are the takeaways from those campaigns, like how the campaign page is written, how the deck is presented, what kind of pictures you need to take. So I think researching is going to be so beneficial. I might make a separate video about the things you need to research when it comes to like creating a deck, and just go from there. And then we'll see what happens. But yeah, researching is so important. Like, you want to do creative research, market research. My camera is totally traveling because I just plugged it in. It was like overheating and it was running out of power. So now you can see like the rest of my desk or whatever. Actually, I think this is better. I should do this in the future. I'm really, really chatty today. If you can't tell, like, I'm talking kind of fast. But yeah, like, research and do as much research as you can. I think the point of researching isn't to kind of give yourself so much output that you start changing your idea, but researching should really reinforce and just really fortify the idea that you already have, and it'll really create a steady foundation and fortress around your beautiful creation to help launch into the world. Give it a foundation and give it some structure, and just kind of build and help manifest this idea of yours. So yeah, do lots of research. Research is always helpful. And yeah, so I'm really glad that I did this today. I had no idea what I was gonna say on camera. I was just like, let me just channel some deck creation stuff because I feel like talking more about it. And I was like, why don't I ask a deck that I created to tell me about deck creation and give me some tips? So thank you, pandas, for showing up today to give us strategies and tips and just things to look out for when we're creating a deck. There's obviously so much more that I can say about deck creation, but for now, this is it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this, or if you're wondering about deck creation in general, anything else that you might be curious about. I might do a video on that. If you're a deck creator, make sure to check out my resources for deck creators. It's completely free, and it's just on my website, so I will leave the link down below. It's just like a collection of useful resources for creating a deck. Like, it has like printers and courses that are related to decoration and a bunch of goodies. Okay, so just go check out that page. I really put it to put some love out there in the world, because I just feel like we need to have more resources on decoration, because so many people are doing it now, and there's just like a lot of crap online. Okay, there's some crap online, there's some shit online, so I'm just trying to rectify that. I'm just trying to empower my fellow creatives so I don't feel so alone, okay? That's what I want. Until next time, keep creating, keep expressing yourselves, and keep living the joy of your life. Yeah, follow for more decoration and creative stuff, and also just my musings on life and personal development, and level up tarot and life. It's so dorky. Oh my god.